Today we're looking at the 2023 Under-18 Boys Northern Conference Grand Final.
Oh, how about that? It's even better.
Count of the man, count of the hour.
That is sensational.
Northern Conference Grand Final in the 18 Boys. Central Coast are playing Northern Beaches. This is played at Dubbo, and it will be under the 3-2 scoring. So the first try is worth 3, and the other tries are worth 2, just in case you're confused by the scoreboard. So Northern Beaches will hit first, gets over from dummy half, and finds a player. Let's have a look and see how they got that one. It's a pretty basic play. And look, if you're smart, you probably try the basic plays first up to get some completions and a bit of confidence, especially being a grand final. So we have, if I get the trusty pencil, we've got a middle play the ball. So we've got 2 middles. Okay, so all it is going to be is this player here is going to be your predominant ball carrier, and they're going to run, and they're going to try and get either a 3-on-2 on the short side or a 4-on-3 on the open side. Ideally, the defender here would like to give them the 4-on-3 as opposed to 3-on-2, so he's going to pull short, he's going to pull short, he's going to pull short, and these 3 are going to take on a late shutdown roll in theory. But that doesn't actually happen, so he will pick up from half and run. The dumper who dumped here is splitting out here and hitting this hole between the middle and the link to provide a passage for the dummy half to run through there. So it's good shape by Central Coast. They've pulled corner, and he's cracked him back open. By the time the Central Coast bloke here is recovered, he's got himself enough space, but this defender here probably should be a metre or 2 in here. He's a bit too loose, okay, because ideally you never want to let that dummy half run through into the in goal, especially on the open side, because of the chances of him finding a player are just way too high. So he fails to do a late shutdown, instead trying to go man on, and as you can see, these 2 are basically just playing tag or whatever. Central Coast is trying to stick to him, and he can't do so, and he finds his player. So good work from the Northern Beaches to start off with a very basic play, but it's done fast and it's done well. And it's worth the same amount of points as the most elaborate try you can think of. And of course they hit back again. Have a look at this play. It looks very similar. Middle. But the execution is a little different. So we'll have a look at this one as well. There's a little bit of a prop, which is a bit unnecessary. If you're at the 7, just make the touch anyway. So you start the middle here. Very, very much the same as the last try. Middle, play the ball. This dumper will split open side and run the hole between middle and link. Pull corner, okay, just to make sure that they don't get that cheap 3-on-2. And the dummy half will take off a little bit short side, okay, to make sure that he does push him as far away as he can from the open side. Then he'll step back. Whereas this time, Central Coast, much better. Okay, there's not a lot of gap for him to run through, so they've adjusted quite well. But Northern Beaches do pick a good option here. So we've got this link coming in to shut down, which is fine. But he picks the long ball. Okay, which as a defender, that's the one that you want him to pick because it is the hardest pass. But in that case, he nailed it. And it was very close, so the winger actually nearly got a touch there. So his reaction speed was actually quite good. But again, very basic play. Done well practiced, and done at pace. So let's have a look. Central Coast now, a little bit of a more advanced play, and then they get their own try in the corner with their own long ball. So essentially it works out to be very similar, just a few different runners. So, okay, this is a bit of a complicated one. First time I saw this play was from CQ Bulls, Central Queensland, in the Men's Open. So it's a middle play the ball. Okay, 18 Boys love their middle. And the reason a lot of teams like middle is it does give you equal opportunity to go either side. Okay, if you fade for a link, you've really only got one option to play with. So middle here, it's a short side quickie shape, okay? But notice here, this player here was actually the far side link. Okay, so he's come around here to run, well, he's actually come around the back. This guy will run a short side, so they're doing a kind of a big block. Now essentially that puts this guy at link. So in order for this player here not to just run up and get him, a lot of lines, this guy will then wrap around. Okay, it keeps that player there away from the ball carrier. So he runs around, and now we're into a 4-on-3 shape here. but a block runner. So he's going to run the block, he's going to run out the back. But look, this guy's flew in out of nowhere. He's sort of touching no one, and then the winger's got to come in as well because his links came in, and he's just going to pick the bomb over the top. So that shape there, it's just a glorified 4-on-3 with a block runner. That's all it is. Okay, and a block runner, it's kind of you can be classed as a passive shape or whatever, but the idea is there's bodies running everywhere, and it will confuse the defenders into overthinking it into being something a lot more than what it is, which I think that's what they've done. Okay, they've just seen bodies running everywhere, they panic, they just shut down automatically, and Central Coast go over the top. Whether or not that was a touch or not, not sure. Very close. Central Coast with the ball again. By the way, I had no idea what that play was called. I don't know. You could just call it a quickie out the back or something. But yeah, it doesn't really have a name to my knowledge. Central Coast again, hitting back. Sweeper. Bit of a soft try, this one. So it's just a sweeper, but they counter back on the short side, or what ends up being the short side. Or is it the short side? No, it's the open side. Wait, it's a sweeper. Okay, so the idea of this is the sweeper comes around this way. This player here will have to pull a real hard corner, okay, because the person that's sweeping is going to be able to score, and these two players here will go out and man on to their own player. Okay, but by doing this, by having to pull a hard corner, this other middle will have to come across in cover, because if the sweeper steps back off his right foot, he's just got an easy passage otherwise to score. So the middles have to close that gap. But in doing so, the dummy half counters the momentum back to the camera side. Okay, now that, just to quickly point out there, that's not a very good touch to make on the 7. Okay, you don't want to be roughing up the play the ball or attempting to contest the ruck, because if they do get a quick play the ball, all your momentum is going into the ruck instead of getting out of the touch to chase your player. So not the best practice there for making the touch. They do get the play the ball. And as you can see, this player here has just figured out that he needs to turn around. So his momentum was completely the other way. By the time he sees the dummy half, everyone's done the same thing. They've just got to turn around. So not a bad option. Normally when they run like that out of dummy half, everyone goes into man on, and you do see the dummy half get into the in goal a lot. But yeah, that was good. So this is a nice play. And we have... So just before this happens, we'll go through this play. We saw this in one of the earlier videos, the Doyleson video of the Men's Open Grand Final. It's called a splitter, and it's pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, the link, that's a middle quickie, short side, but they don't give it to this middle. Okay, he splits really hard in order to get his defender to chase him. Okay, because if he does that, he's getting him out of the way for the link to come up the middle and split the ruck. Now, he's a live ball player, okay, so he can ball play, he can dive, he can do what he wants. The person's dummy half, it's their job to realign and hit a hole, which is that hole. So as we continue, they don't actually score off it because the link gets a good read and he just flies in. It's a risky read, but if he's confident and can do it, it works. So what happens here is, I believe the Northern Beaches player, from what it looks like, he's mouthed off at the referee, and he's been given time. So he has to run down the other end, and for a total of 4 possessions, so in theory that's 2 each, he has to be in the sin bin. So it's 6-on-5 at the moment. And for those who are wondering how to defend with 5 players, have a look at the shape that Northern Beaches do. So they've obviously had a couple of scenarios where they're at 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 out here for 5. Now, an old school defense, when I say old school, probably mid-2000s, it became popular, is the I defense, which is where you have, imagining there's 6 on the field, a link, a middle, high, and then a middle sitting back in the I, which is, you do see it in mixed. Okay, that's where you see the I defense. But in case where you are defending with 5 players, this is the best way to do it, because once you have your middle player make the touch, as soon as they're beaten offside, it's an automatic 3-on-2. Okay, so if you can get one of these players here to make the touch, if they pull a hard corner, at least you know that it's only a 4-on-3. So that's the theory. It's still going to be very hard to defend, But if that middle player makes the touch, 3-on-2. If one of these edge blokes makes the touch, 4-on-3. So you can see their shape there. They're just sliding now. They don't want the middle guy to make the touch. They managed to scramble here, which is good. Great defense. But the trouble they make here now is, look who's made the touch. So we'll go back to that touch there. Now he should have just... See where this guy is? That's where he should have been. Back on the line here. Okay, and slowly moving forward while this guy comes up and gets in that space. That way this guy can come up and get in that space and sort of cut their angle off a little bit. But they get flustered, Northern Beaches, and he ends up making the touch. And you can see, either way, he doesn't really have a short side to pull, because if he pulls this way, they hit this way. And vice versa. So as soon as his body shape went this way, they knew that they had to split the other way. Now it's a 3-on-2. There's 1 and 2 extras with only a link and a winger in defense. And it's just too easy. Too much space, 3-on-2, hit a hole, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, Central Coast do hit back with a fortunate call from the referee. So we're back to 6-on-6 now. Central Coast are in front. Northern Beaches with the ball. Okay. Another very simple middle try. So Northern Beaches, they're not really doing anything fancy. Okay, it's the old KISS strategy, keep it simple, stupid. We have 2 middles. Okay, and the way Central Coast are defending, they've sent up a high middle. This bloke here, arrow's a bit off, and they want him to make the touch regardless. And my guess is that one of these Northern Beaches players is big on a left to right pass. And in order for them to get an open side where they can throw the left to right pass, they need to make the touch on this middle. Okay, Central Coast have identified that, and they're not going to give that middle. Okay, so in order for them to throw a long ball, it's got to be thrown on their bad side. So it's a bit of chess there, really. So it's good tactical movements in defense from Central Coast. But let's see what happens here. So the idea of this pass there, it gets the middle over here, and then they'll recycle the ball, hoping to get in and get the other middle. But Central Coast, they still do a very good job. But now the other middle's got to come up. And what we have here is we have 2 middles up on the 7, which is bad. Because that means you've got 2 players offside, and there's all this space in behind them that's unoccupied that someone can just run straight into. Okay, so that's why you don't have 2 people in the touch, because it's too much vulnerable space in the open. Speaking of open, they run what's called an open side quickie. So as you can see, the number 18 here, he knows that this player is going to pull corner, and his job is to get in this little area here. Sorry about my lines, but he's going to have to cover this player's his other middles inside. Because normally you run a short side quickie, you just step short side, you try to crack back in and score the try, but he's done open side, and you can see he's completely turned the wrong way. And the open side quickie was developed when middles became so tight that they split the other way, counted momentum, and it became a foot race. It just became a foot race. So the only way to defend that is if the link gets in good position and has by now just flown in and made the touch blindsided. But that doesn't happen because of the cycling that Northern Beaches were doing. They get the ball, and again, there's the foot race. It's a really, really well-timed dive. Like, that ball's on the line. That's awesome. Okay, so we look at that full speed. We're going to have to deal with the lines. Sorry. There's the check back. There's more lines, but here's the... Come on. There's the grounding. Great try. But again, middle. It's nothing fancy from Northern Beaches. They're just doing it really, really well. I've always said that a simple play done well is better than an elaborate play done average. There's that splitter play again. This time it's worked for Central Coast. Let's have a look why. I don't think Northern Beaches would be particularly happy with their defense on this one. Okay, so by the looks of it, yeah, let's have a look here. So, a tactic in defense by Northern Beaches is quite good. This is the link. Okay, they know, Northern Beaches know that Central Coast want to make the touch on this middle. They know that that splitter play is coming. They know number 21 here is going to be the predominant ball player. So what do? They send up the link. That way, when he ball plays, he runs into that middle who will be already onside. He's running into an onside player, which is very difficult to beat. Everyone else can then just man up, and it becomes a very easy defense. So what does the number 21 do? He stays wide. Okay? By him being wide, the link can't go in and make the touch. If he goes in, number 21 gets the ball and he shoots down the short side for a 2-on-1. It's a bounce. Okay, so by him staying wide, if he was positioned here, knowing that he's going to be in the splitter, Link just makes the touch. Easy for defense. But because he stayed wide, he's seen the Link come in, and now he's staying wide. Look how wide he is. And that Link's had to back off, and now the middle, in theory, the middle then should just read that and come up and jam it as hard as he can. But the middle now comes up, and now you see number 21 go up the middle. Okay? And basically now he attacks this hole there. This bloke will run this hole. Everyone else just runs a hole. He gives an early ball to his other middle. So it becomes what's called like a splitter two-step. And a two-step means just when you gain possession of the ball, you take 2 steps and then you feed it back open early. It just becomes an easier pass. Everyone's in nice and tight for Northern Beaches, and by the time they realise, the ball's already gone. So nice play. Just a nice little awareness from Central Coast that Link was getting up nice and high. Northern Beaches got the ball back again. At least it wasn't a middle play, this one. But that actually turned out to be the winning try. So let's have a look. This one was their only try since the first one that came from subbing. So they've just rolled on the field. Now again, I've spoken about this a fair bit. He's going for the middle Link play now, where he fades out and he just continues on his outward run and then straightens up in the Link wing line. And the dummy half will take off and just, all he's got to do is beat the offside player. You beat the offside player, you got an either a 3-on-2 or a 4-on-3. And when I say offside player, that's the best case scenario for the defenders. They're going to have offside player, offside player, offside player, 3 of them. So that's a lot of ground they've got to cover amongst the 3 of those guys while the ball is coming at them. Really, you just want one player in that touch. If it's got to be in the middle, so be it. Just have one player. You don't need all those people offside backpedaling to get back onside. So while you're backpedaling, very easy to be stepped like that. Double step, beautiful, love it. And he's completely fallen over. At first I thought he dove, and we always say never dive at the dummy half because you only get one chance at someone who can't score, but he's just completely fallen over because he's off balance running backwards. And by the time the Link recovers, I think if he has his time again, the other middle here, he was coming across to cover. He should have just probably lined up his own player and just tried to stick to him, but he's come in. Nice little pass and a nice pass to the winger as well. Nice soft hands there. Northern Beaches actually get the final try of the game. Just, again, Northern Beaches won that game by sticking to simple plays. And it's a great lesson for especially under 18s who really like the fancy stuff, that sometimes it's the simple plays that will win you championships. But yeah, thank you very much for joining in on this episode, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Game Analysis. Thank you.